What's going on, guys? We are live for Thursday Night Football. Pittsburgh Steelers versus the Cleveland Browns. A lot to break down in this game, a lot to talk about for week 3. We will be, of course, discussing Thursday night start-sit questions. I've already bucketed out the players as I would attack tonight in terms of fantasy football. We'll be talking about who I like tonight to win, who I think is the best play against the spread. My favorite player props. I actually like a decent amount tonight. And there should be some pretty good fantasy football performances. Going to be a fun one for sure. Sam, should I trade Najee Harris? Look, you got to start Najee Harris if you have Najee Harris. That is definitely an easy start-sit decision. But depending on what you can get for him, I'm okay trading Najee Harris. I'm a little bit nervous about him. He has failed to show he can make big plays on a pretty consistent basis. He's like the classic 3 yards per touch running back. It's really tough to get excited about Najee Harris. His ceiling. His floor is pretty good, though, guys. He has the 6th highest opportunity share in the league. He's seeing 4 targets a game, which is not bad. He's only scored 1 touchdown, but he has 5 red zone touches. His yards per carry, though, 2.9 yards per carry. That's 58th in the NFL. 58th yards per carry for Najee Harris. I traded him straight up for A.J. Dillon before week 2. A.J. Dillon's had 20 touches last week. I'm actually kind of liking that. So I would trade him for A.J. Dillon straight up still. But I think they're pretty comparable. And I would be starting both those guys. Start Garrett Wilson or Amari Cooper. Oh, Garrett Wilson's tough to bench, man. He's very tough to bench. In a game 2, the Jets are probably going to get blown out. I think the Bengals could easily bounce back against the Jets. And if that happens, then we could see another big Garrett Wilson day. I mean, what we saw from him in week 2, I don't think we should overlook. But at the same time, Amari Cooper looked pretty good last week. So I'm okay starting Amari Cooper also. I actually think Amari Cooper is probably a little bit safer. Maybe he doesn't have the same ceiling. I mean, both guys catching passes from pretty bad quarterbacks, so I guess both have a pretty low floor. Last week, Amari Cooper, 10 targets, turned that into 9 catches, 101 yards, and a touchdown for Amari Cooper last week. I definitely like him. Tonight, Steelers secondary didn't look all that scary against the Patriots. The Patriots, mind you, they do not have a receiver as good as Amari Cooper on their team. Jacoby Myers was tearing them up. Really in the slot, the Steelers really struggled to defend the slot. They also got no pressure without T.J. Watt last week. I think the Browns will win tonight. I do have the Browns winning the game. The spread, I think, is a lot tougher, though. I haven't had a strong opinion on any Thursday night spread yet. I think they've got them all pretty good, and I'm not going to force anything. I'll be totally honest with how I'm feeling about the spreads. I think I would take the Steelers plus 4.5 in this one. I have a feeling most of the money will be on the Browns. I also don't like rooting for the Browns. I don't like the Browns. And shame on the Browns for their loss last week. An absolutely embarrassing loss that the Browns are coming off of, letting up an onside kick to the Jets and then allowing the touchdown. I loved all the Discord this week. Everyone talking about the Nick Chubb touchdown. Oh, yeah, it was Nick Chubb's fault. Nick Chubb's fault that the Browns lost because he scored a touchdown. Like, maybe you just don't allow an onside kick. Or you don't let Jacoby Brissett drive for a touchdown. Like, it's not, I mean, not Jacoby Brissett, Joe Flacco. Like, it's not that hard. Don't let Joe Flacco drive for 50 yards and don't let him recover an onside kick. That was actually Amari Cooper's fault, I'm pretty sure, that onside kick. But he did have a good game last week, and I won't be shocked if he has another good game against the Steelers secondary. Again, I think the Browns win, Steelers cover. That's how it would go. I feel like I've gone that way in a Thursday night recently, and that actually is how it played out. I think the Chiefs, that's what I did. Hey, Sam, Deontay Johnson or Mike Williams? Yeah, Deontay Johnson's got a really safe floor, but I'm not playing him over Mike Williams. Definitely not. Keenan Allen's supposed to be back this week, but guys, with what we saw to Mike Williams last week, that's why we play him. Like, again, Johnson is the definition of like a consistent 10-point scorer in fantasy. He's getting you over 10 points. If you go back into his game logs, like go back to the last 3 years. So far to start this season, Deontay Johnson, 12.5 fantasy points, 13.7 fantasy points. Going back through last season, 14.4, 12.1, 17.1, 15.1, 9.8 has been his floor in the last 2 years. So if you're trying to lock in points, you got to be starting Deontay Johnson. And I'm okay with that strat. If that's what you want to do, you want to lock in some points, then go Deontay Johnson, like minimum in 9.8. That's literally been his worst week in the last 2 seasons. We have to go back to 3 seasons in games that he barely even played in. Like, these are like games, the last time that Deontay Johnson scored under 10 points when he played over 50% of the snaps was in 2020 in week 1. And he scored 9.7 and had 10 targets in that game. You have to go all the way back to 2019 to break that record. I mean, yeah, he's just so consistent, guys. I'm okay starting Deontay Johnson or Mike Williams. Again, I like chasing the ceiling, but I'm okay going with Deontay Johnson in that situation. Cooper or Drake London? I'm not benching Drake London. Definitely not. Do not bench Drake London. Cooper or Garrett Wilson? Yeah, I saw that one earlier too. Again, I think Garrett Wilson's ceiling is higher. Cooper's floor is probably higher than Garrett Wilson, though. Again, both quarterbacks suck, though. So, like, what's the real floor? With Jacoby Brissett and Joe Flacco, I'm not sure how low that floor could get. I don't think we've seen it yet, probably for either guy. Obviously, Mark Cooper had a really bad week one. The Garrett Wilson's week one wasn't anything to write home about either. But yeah, I think I'd be okay going Garrett Wilson personally. I think the Jets-Bengals game is going to be more high scoring than this game. This is going to be an ugly game. This is two run-first offenses, a mediocre at best defenses, bad quarterbacks. I mean, the defenses are both good at full health, but TJ Watt's out of this game. Jadeveon Clowney out of this game. Myles Garrett is playing. Myles Garrett did have, I think, at least one sack last week. I think he had 7 pressures too. I mean, he's an absolute beast. He's going to cause some problems. The Steelers' offensive line is, again, average at best. That's like their ceiling. Their floor is like bottom 3 or bottom 5 in the NFL. The Steelers' offensive line hasn't looked too great. Guys, we're live on YouTube and TikTok right now. Come over to the YouTube live. You get a little bit more information on the screen, and it's also easier for me to pull up your comment on the YouTube live. Link to that is in the TikTok bio. We'll pull up some comments right now and get to them again. I think that the Browns win. I think that the Steelers cover the 4.5 point spread. My favorite player prop of the night, let me type this up for the YouTube live. My favorite player prop for the night. I think people are going to like this one. There's actually 2 that I'll give you that I like tonight. But the first one is a rookie. And we just saw rookies. I posted a video about the rookies yesterday. I think it was yesterday. I posted a video about Kyle Pitts today. A video about the rookies yesterday. Kyle Pitts, guys. Don't get me started on Kyle Pitts. I had to post a video about him. By the way, I don't know if people, I try to make up my own trend with that last video. I don't know if it hit or not. I haven't looked. But George Pickens over 28.5 receiving yards. Let me break this down for you. By the way, we cashed on the Rashad Bateman one. I actually posted a recap of my Sunday morning live on YouTube this morning if you want to catch that. Plus, in there is 10 players that I'm buying or selling in fantasy. So I won't talk too much about that unless some of those players come up on the live. But I did post a YouTube video this morning about, guys, trade advice. 10 players I'm either buying or selling in fantasy. Plus, I recapped how I did on my Sunday morning live, which I do every single Sunday morning, basically from when I wake up to kickoff. But yeah, my favorite player prop tonight is George Pickens over 28.5 receiving yards. You can get this on Underdog. You can get this on Prize Picks. You do need to go with the second one with that if you're doing it on those platforms. I'll give you who I'm going with on the second one on Prize Picks tonight. But guys, George Pickens, he's off to a slow start. He has not lived up to the hype, and there's been some really good rookie performances all so far from really the first rounders. But I still believe George Pickens has talent and that we're going to see much better games than what he's had in these first couple of games. And the good news is George Pickens, he's playing a lot. He has really ran a lot of routes. Let me pull up how I'm feeling about George Pickens. So far, he has 6 total targets through 2 weeks. He has combined 2 catches, 26 yards through the first 2 weeks. But, guys, he's run a route on 90% of Mitch Trubisky's dropbacks. 90% of Mitch Trubisky's dropbacks. He's out there. I think that this is we're going to see this target total tick up over the course of the season. The other thing is it's Chase Claypool playing from the slot. Chase Claypool is playing a lot from the slot, and that's good news for George Pickens because it means deeper targets for George Pickens. If you look at the ADOT for George Pickens versus for Chase Claypool, it's actually shocking. It's actually shocking. Go look at it. Average depth of target. George Pickens, 23.5 yards average depth of target. That means on average, he's already 23.5 yards down the field when he's targeted. Again, he only has 6 targets, so small sample size. But then we compare that to Chase Claypool. And by the way, his prop again is at 28.5. He only maybe needs a few targets. Maybe only one target. Maybe he could do this on one catch. He could easily get a 30-yard catch in this game. Then you go look at Chase Claypool, who I actually like the Steelers playing him out of the slot. I actually think it's a good move. I think it's really tough to defend a slot Chase Claypool. But from a fantasy football perspective, there might be some easier targets. Like his catch rate might go up. But guys, Chase Claypool's average depth of target, 5.9. Claypool's at 5.9. Pickens at 23.5. He almost has a 5 times deeper depth of target than Chase Claypool. Because again, Claypool's playing in the slot. 77% of his Claypool snaps have come from the slot. 85 slot snaps. Number 3 in the league. Number 3 in the league. And that's good for his floor. I don't think it's good for his ceiling, though. And it is good for Pickens' ceiling, seeing a really deep role in this offense. I think you could easily beat this prop in a single play. Easily. Pickens 23.7. I don't know what that was. Okay, we got to address this because I'm not seeing it in the YouTube live. What defense are you streaming? This is a weird week for defenses. I'm going with the Cowboys, the Giants. I like. I do want to look at. I don't think anyone's asking it in the YouTube live. Someone asked about the weather in the YouTube live, so I can pull it up because Weatherman Sam needs to show up tonight. Usually Weatherman Sam's chilling on Thursday night. Sometimes we have some dome games. Usually it's just, good night game. But tonight, there's been some chatter. There has been some chatter about the weather in this game, and so we do have to address it. Again, I'm taking the Browns to win, Steelers to cover, 4.5 point spread. I got the players behind me on TikTok that I must start, I think fringe start, and then bench. I got the same thing up on YouTube as well. I will in a second at least. Still no YouTube comment about the weather, but we will pull that up when it happens. But again, the weather tonight. So there's some light wind. There's some moderate wind, I guess we can say. I wouldn't call it strong wind. Again, I'm very technical when we talk about the winds because you don't want to overreact to the weather. Like you can go too far with the weather and to your detriment in fantasy football. If you overreact, like you're not benching Najee Harris tonight. You're not benching Nick Chubb. The weather does not affect either of those guys. It doesn't affect Kareem Hunt. And I would argue it doesn't affect Deontay Johnson or Amari Cooper either. I would still start all these guys with a decent amount of confidence. Again, guys, you have to go back to week 1 of 2020 to find a game that Deontay Johnson had less than 9.7 PPR fantasy points. I mean, that's like 16, 17 straight games. He's the definition of a safe floor. I don't know how high ceiling he is with Mitch Trubisky, but he is really safe floor. Amari Cooper, again, he had 9 catches last week, 10 targets. Steelers secondary didn't look great against a Patriots receiving room that doesn't have a single player better than Amari Cooper. Jacoby Myers was really dominating over the slot. It would be interesting to see if Cooper plays in the slot at all because it does feel like that's where the Steelers defense is weakest. But again, without TJ Watt, they only had 1 pressure on Mac Jones last week. Patriots offensive line does have some upside. It's possible the offensive line for the Pats is really good. But even still, the Browns offensive line is also pretty good. So I'm okay starting Deontay Johnson. I'm okay starting Najee Harris. I'm starting both the running backs for the Browns. Nick Chubb, by the way, coming off a hat trick, 3 touchdowns. He's the number 1 fantasy football running back right now because of that. Obviously, he's not going to score 3 touchdowns every week. But we knew he was going to be leaned on heavily. Everyone knew that going into this season. By the way, he only has 23.8 fantasy points per game, which would not have been RB1 last season. The running backs are off to a really, really bad start so far this fantasy football season. Chubb TD, yeah, I don't hate going for a Chubb TD. Let me plug my phone in. I don't hate going for a Chubb touchdown. Again, my favorite prop, though, tonight is Pickens over 28.5 yards. His average depth of target so far this season has been 23.5. So what that tells me is he could easily beat this prop in a single play. And those are the types of props I like. That's why my second favorite prop tonight is Jacoby Brissett. Jacoby Brissett over 11 rushing yards. It's Jacoby Brissett over 11 rushing yards. This is on Prize Picks. It might have moved already. Honestly, I won't be shocked if this one moves because I don't think this is a good line at all for them. Underdog, by the way, they have it at 13.5, and that's usually a good sign that Prize Picks is a little bit behind on this. So I do like the value on Jacoby Brissett over 11 rushing yards. George Pickens over 28.5 yards. Guys, we only need like 40 combined yards between the two of them to cash. That's not that many yards. In a game that there probably won't be many yards. I'd be very careful with all these overs tonight, especially for some of the top guys. I do like Amari Cooper. Again, I do like all these running backs. I think at least one of Chubb or Hunt, their receiving prop, will probably hit. But there's definitely a lot of variance for all these guys in what is expected to be one of the lowest scoring games of the week. Again, 2 run-heavy offenses. What do you think about Chase Claypool? So again, Chase Claypool, his ceiling is not very high in fantasy. Again, like his role has been so clear so far this season. The roles have been clear for a while for the Steelers, honestly. But this year it's clear again. Chase Claypool, he's playing from the slot. That's actually new. He didn't do that as much last year. Chase Claypool has the 3rd most slot snaps in the NFL heading into week 3. Deontay Johnson, he's on the outside. George Pickens, he's on the outside. Both Deontay Johnson and really it's Deontay Johnson like the intermediate part of the field. Chase Claypool, his average depth of target is 5.5 yards. He's not even getting close to the sticks on average for his targets. Like he's running straight over the middle, going 5 yards down the field. Meanwhile, George Pickens' average depth of target 23.5. So like his target's almost exclusively deep. And then Deontay's the one that's really going to eat. And he's almost definitely going to go over 10 points again tonight. That means like minimum 3 catches for 70, like 4 catches for 60 yards, 5 catches for 50 yards. Let's say a minimum for Deontay Johnson. He could easily score a touchdown, get over that too. Again, you have to go back to week 1 of 2020. That's 2 years ago to find a game where Deontay Johnson, when he played over 50% of the snaps, he had less than 9.5 fantasy points. Like he has such a good floor. But again, I don't know how good the ceiling is for too many guys tonight. Other than really Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt, I think they have probably the high ceilings. So now, hey Sam, PPR, Curtis Samuel or Deontay Johnson? I would go Deontay over Curtis Samuel. And I get the hype around Samuel. I might be taking L's on Curtis Samuel because I didn't add him anywhere But I'm definitely playing Deontay over him. I feel much better about Deontay's floor than Curtis Samuel's floor. Amari Cooper in the wind or Elijah Moore in the rain. Again, I would not overreact to weather reports on Thursday about Sunday. Let's not overreact to weather reports on Thursday about Sunday, guys. The weather could change. We're not saying we're going to bench Elijah Moore just because of the weather right now. And maybe you can tell me I'm wrong if the weather ends up being bad on Sunday for the Jets. But I did get sidetracked there. I do want to talk about the weather. So there's supposed to be wind up to 19 miles an hour, it looks like. Wind up to 19 miles an hour, or maybe on average, 19 miles an hour. Let me pull this up. Again, I've done studies on this, and the studies so far have shown that wind over 25 miles an hour is what we get concerned about. Wind over 25 miles an hour. Now, I am seeing other reports for this game where it says the wind is up to 21 miles an hour. We're getting kind of close to 25. We're getting kind of close to 25. Again, that's the threshold that I really care about. 25 miles an hour. I found a statistical significance in passing tags at 25 miles an hour. But guess what? Here's the official report. There's gusty winds. Sustained winds around 20 miles an hour. Gusts around 30 miles an hour. Guys, we have our first game that's going to have wind over 25 miles an hour this season. No game so far has had wind this fast. This does matter. I think it is enough for a tiebreaker to, you should start Elijah Moore in that situation. You can bench Deontay Johnson and Amari Cooper if you have another good option. Again, gusts of wind up to 30 miles an hour. We already know Trubisky is trash. We already know Jacoby Brissett. He's not going to do much down the field. And then you add in gusts of 30 miles an hour. That actually does get me very concerned. I'm actually glad I read this second report because the first report said 19 miles an hour. But this second report that I'm reading, and this is from Roto Grinders that I'm reading, got to give credit to my resources. Gusts of wind up to 30 miles an hour. Sustained winds around 20. Again, 20 doesn't get me that worried. I've done studies on this. Wind under 25 miles an hour, you can't see too much of an effect in terms of historic numbers. Wind over 25 miles an hour, though, you do, and there's going to be gusts over that tonight. So that definitely makes me like the under a little bit more. It makes me even more pessimistic this is going to be a low-scoring game. Hi, Sam. Hope all has been well. Thanks, Kylo. Things have been going great. Excited for week 3. Pick 2, Claypool, Thielen, and Dotson. Walter gave me a 50-50. Yeah, by the way, thanks for trying out the WalterPicks app. Completely free to try in the in the App Store, the iOS and Google Play Store. It's going to help you with all your start-sit decisions, all your trades, all your player prop decisions, all your DraftKings and FanDuel decisions. There's no better app to try. And honestly, we price it too low. I mean, it's way too cheap. It's only $10 a month. Like really, we should be charging more than $10 a month. Most of our competitors are charging, like $300 a year. Hey, Sam, would you trade Gabe Davis and Olave for T. Higgins? Gabe Davis and Olave for T. Higgins. So I didn't get to that question. I will get back to that, Kylo. I don't think I would do this. I really like Olave. So I don't think I would do this. Let me pull your question back up, Kylo. So Claypool, Thielen, and Dotson, pick 2. Yeah, I think I would probably. I think I would start Claypool and really. Thielen's been really disappointing. Dotson's obviously looked really good. He's 3 touchdowns through 2 games. I do think that the game for the Vikings is a little bit more exciting to go after. And I would probably go Thielen, honestly. I think I'd go Thielen and Claypool. Thielen has been out there 99% of the snaps. I mean, like he's out there. He hasn't scored a touchdown yet. That's going to change eventually. I'm okay going with Thielen. And that one definitely really is a close one, though. So it makes sense that Walter has that one tight. Kareem Hunt, Curtis Samuel, or Allen Robinson. By the way, if you got start-sit questions and I don't get to them, go to the WalterPicks app. You can do as many free start-sit comparisons as you want. That's in the iOS and Android App Store. And it also is going to take into account your custom scoring settings, which a lot of times in these questions like Marcus, I would have appreciated you letting me know what your custom scoring setting was, because that would actually dictate an answer in this one, because you're between a running back and a receiver. Receivers get a big bump in PPR formats. Running backs get a big bump in non-PPR formats. And Kareem Hunt, he's a special type of running back. He'll get a slight bump in PPR too, because he will be involved in the passing game. I don't hate Kareem Hunt. Again, there's going to be wind. I won't be shocked if Nick Chubb or Kareem Hunt lead this game in receiving. Like that could definitely happen. Same thing with Najee Harris. Then a running back with 30-mile-an-hour gusts of wind definitely could be more involved. But for me, it's between A-Rob and Hunt. Again, I don't love benching Hunt and A-Rob for Curtis Samuel. I feel like I'm going to keep telling people to bench Curtis Samuel. I might end up eating an L there. Hey, Sam, Hunt or Zeke? And Hunt over Zeke and Pollard. Yeah, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that for sure. You are somewhat flipping a coin with Zeke and Pollard. And they're in a game against the Giants, that game super low over under. That's why I like the Cowboys defense this week. I like the Giants defense this week too, though. I think you like both are really good options. We're like 25, 35 minutes from kickoff or so. Hunt Patterson or Brandon Cooks. I'm not playing Patterson. We were on the money with Patterson as a sell high after week 1. Make sure you're checking out those YouTube videos. I'm dropping them usually it's Thursday morning that I'm dropping them. Trying to get on Wednesday. Usually it's been Thursday morning. 10 guys I'm buying or selling in fantasy football. So far on that list, we've included guys like A.J. Dillon. Kyle Pitts is obviously on that list. I did post a video about Kyle Pitts this morning. Hey, Sam, should I still start Cooper? I have Kupp, CD, and Jacoby Myers in right now. Yeah, so Jacoby Myers might not play. So this one's really tough, honestly. I think like in this, like who's the next guy? Because there's a decent chance. I'd say like 50-50 chance Jacoby Myers doesn't play. He didn't practice today. He didn't practice yesterday. So that is a little bit concerning. I think it's a knee injury. I could be off on that. I think it's a knee injury. By the way, guys, how are the Pats only 2.5-point underdogs in this game? I'm just looking at that spread now. How are the Pats only underdogs by 2.5? I get that the Ravens secondary is beat up, but there's almost no chance that the Pats beat the Ravens. There's almost no chance. It would be actually shocking. And maybe the only chance is if Lamar's elbow injury is like worse than they're letting on. Sam, how are we feeling about Quadzilla against Tampa Bay this week? He runs between the tackles as much as anyone in the league, which I can't imagine would be too successful against Tampa Bay. Thoughts? Yeah, Jacob, definitely is not going to be a week you're most excited about A.J. Dillon. This may be one of the worst matchups in the league for him. But the encouraging thing for A.J. Dillon, why I'll be starting him still in some spots, is he's actually been pretty relevant in the passing game. And again, this week, I mean, I keep harping on this in the Sunday morning lives, and I probably will keep doing it because I think it's going to be a trend throughout the whole season. And this was likely heading into the season. Aaron Rodgers is really frustrated with his receiving room. And then now they're like all not practicing every week because they're picking up little injuries. Alan Lazard didn't practice today. Let me pull this report. Like none of the receivers are practicing. Christian Watson's not practicing. I'm sure that makes Aaron Rodgers like super pumped. He's not even getting practice reps with Aaron Rodgers out there. Christian Watson's not even running reps with him. So A.J. Dillon will be involved. Let me try to find this Packers report about Alan Lazard and the rest of the receivers. But yeah, a lot of injuries for the Packers receivers. It seems that, Sammy Watkins held out of Thursday's practice. Christian Watson did not play Thursday's practice. Alan Lazard did not play Thursday's practice. Like, that's all good news for A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones. Both could still have big games. Again, this is not a good matchup, though, for A.J. Dillon. Like, yeah, this is probably going to be one of his lowest projections of the season, though. So, yeah, if there's a week to bench him, I think it is this week. Because he did have 18 carries, only 2 targets last week. So, if you get that against the Bucs, yeah, it's probably going to be like 60 yards. No touchdowns. At best. CEH or Jacobs, half PPR. Though I will say the Bucs offense is kind of in shambles, so maybe they actually will get a lead in that game. CEH or Jacobs, half PPR. I like Jacobs a lot this week. CEH's usage has actually been kind of concerning too. He's had good fantasy days, but the underlying usage is a little bit nerve-wracking with CEH. Can you name RBs better than Travis Etienne? And also, do I buy low on Dillon even if I have Jones? Yeah, I love that, Jason. I think you're actually locking in a really high floor and ceiling with both of them. It's actually a really interesting approach because together they're going to get probably 30 to 40, maybe even 45 touches a week. I mean, you're locking in like 40 plus touches with Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon every single week. And you don't even need to guess with both of them. So yeah, I like that. I would definitely say A.J. Dillon's better than ETN. Let me actually pull this up. I will list off who in our projections this week is ahead of ETN. So I don't have to go off the cuff here. I will pull this up. I actually have it right in front of me. Let's see. Let me move this. Over Travis Etienne. Evan Singletary or Ramondre Stevenson. We have James Robinson ahead of him. Cam Akers is ahead of him. I don't know how I feel good about Cam Akers being ahead of him. I don't know if I agree with that one. Kareem Hunt, Damian Harris, Damian Pierce, Miles Sanders, Cordero Patterson, Michael Carter, Najee Harris, Antonio Gibson, A.J. Dillon, Jeff Wilson, David Montgomery, all these guys better than Travis Etienne. And I think this is kind of an L for me. I was drafting Etienne in a decent amount of best ball leagues in the 4th round. But I mean, I'm surprised by the James Robinson resurgence after the Achilles injury. He's really the first running back to ever look this good after an Achilles injury. Why Cooper a start? Yeah, so I actually would be careful with Cooper and Deontay Johnson. There's going to be gusts of wind up to 25 miles or up to 30 miles an hour tonight. That actually is pretty concerning. But Amari Cooper had 10 targets last week, and Deontay Johnson hasn't had less than 9.5 points since 2019, basically. 3 years that it's been since Deontay Johnson hasn't had at least 9.5 points. Will Dalvin Cook be good this year? Yeah, I'm buying low on Dalvin Cook 100%. He's going to have some massive games. His usage has been a tiny bit disappointing, but really, like, I'm not too worried. He's still 6th in among running backs in targets, 7th in snap share. Like, he's still top 10 in usage. He's run the 4th most routes too at the running back position. I think that's a fantastic sign. If he can end up being a top 5 receiver out of the backfield, he does have 7 catches through 2 weeks. Like, that part is encouraging. And he did have 20 carries in week 1, but the Eagles game was a really big, really high scoring game, tough game for him. I do think he has better days ahead for sure. I think he's still a top 12 running back in fantasy football. Starter sit Amari Cooper or Juju. Yeah, I would start Juju over Amari Cooper. And I think the tiebreaker for me, honestly, it's the wind tonight. Up to 30-mile-an-hour gusts of wind in this game tonight. Don't sleep on that. I've done studies on this. Wind over 25 miles an hour is concerning for the amount of points scored in a game because it affects the passing offenses. Hey, Sam, why would I start Chubb? The Steelers shut him down last year twice. My backup would be ETN or Michael Carter. Yeah, I don't care that the Steelers shut him down twice. The Steelers also kind of got ran over by Damian Harris and Ramondre Stevenson just last week. And guys, Nick Chubb's much better than both those guys. I actually did go back and look at the Chubb games from last season. I actually remember them because I actually feel like I remember saying he was a must start both those games and him sort of flopping in both those games. But I still think he's a must start. Yeah, so week 8 last season against the Steelers, he saw 16 carries, only 1 catch, only 69 yards, no touchdown. And then week 17, he gets 12 carries, 58 yards, no touchdown. So he didn't score a touchdown either game. I mean, that's not something I would bet against tonight. I think he could easily score a touchdown tonight. But also the Steelers' offense is even worse than it was. As bad as Big Ben was, Trubisky has done very little to inspire confidence. Plus, there's going to be wind. Like, he could easily get 20-plus carries tonight. And I think he could easily get a catch or two that goes long also. I'm not benching Nick Chubb. Guys, he just scored 3. He just had a 32.3 fantasy point day. He was the number 1 running back in fantasy last week. He played 60% of the snaps. That's more than he played any game last season against the Steelers. He only had 17 carries, 3 catches. And, 113 yards, 3 touchdowns. Like, the dude has been so efficient for so long. I don't think you can drop him. I don't think you can bench him, in this game. Again, he's been top 10 in yards per carry for, 3 straight years? He's number 8 right now in the NFL yards per carry, 5.8 yards per carry for Nick Chubb, despite Jacoby Brissett being under center. Last season, he was number 6 with 5.5 yards per carry in the NFL. And the year before that, 5.6 yards per carry. That's top 3 in the league. We can't pay benching a guy. He's been top 10 in the league in yards per carry last 3 seasons. And he's shown no slowdown this year. Again, 5.8 yards per carry to start the season. So, yeah, you got to start Chubb. Honestly, I feel even maybe a little bit better about Chubb than I do Najee Harris. I'm a kind of a Najee Harris hater, but I do think you got to start both guys. Again, I still kind of stand by this list. A little bit more nervous about the Pickens prop, though, with the wind. I'm not going to lie. Because his average depth of target, again, 23.5 yards down the field. Hopefully the wind doesn't come too much into play with that one. That is a tiny bit concerning. I'm not going to lie. But it does make me feel better about the Jacoby Brissett over 11.5 rushing yards prop. Because, again, if he can't throw, that's probably going to be pretty good. Sam, I'm struggling at RBs, but I'm loaded at wide receiver. Got offered Swift, Dotson, Madison for Mike Williams, London, Jeff Wilson. Have Cook at RB and CD Bateman and Waddle. Yeah, do that. Pull the trigger. Alex, hit accept. Swift is by far the best player in this trade. It's honestly not close. Swift is in his own tier, maybe 2 tiers ahead of every single player in this trade. Dotson, Madison, they'll sit on your bench. Maybe Madison smashes if Cook gets hurt, but yeah, they'll sit on your bench. But Swift instantly is going to upgrade your lineup if you're not starting. You don't need to start Mike Williams. You don't need to start Drake London. You don't need to start Jeff Wilson because you're going to have DeAndre Swift. Yeah, I definitely do that trade, 100%. And I did post a video this morning, by the way, on YouTube. Players I'm buying and selling. I'm live on YouTube and TikTok right now. Garrett Wilson or Hunt? Yeah, I'm okay. I'm okay going with Garrett Wilson over Hunt. It's definitely close, though. I do think Hunt's floor is better. Garrett Wilson's ceiling is higher. That's usually how I lean running back first receiver. So if you're trying to lock in points, go Hunt. If you're trying to go for the ceiling, go Wilson. I do think the Jets-Bengals game could be kind of high scoring. Low-key, the Bengals are going to show up for that game. The offense, I think, is going to show up against the Jets. And it'll be interesting to see what the Jets do because the Jets lead the league in passing attempts heading into week 3. And that might not change after week 3 if they get blown out by the Bengals. Why would Muth be a fringe start? Yeah, so Muth has been pretty good. But there is weather impact in this game. There's going to be gusts up to 30 miles an hour. That's probably worse for George Pickens than Deontay Johnson. Like Claypool and Muth really have the underneath role. So maybe that actually doesn't impact them as much. But wind over 25 miles an hour is concerning. but the tight end position is also a desolate wasteland. So I do think in a lot of situations, you got to start Muth. I think his floor is really low, but he does have the 7th most air yards among tight ends. He has scored 1 touchdown this season, 17 targets. That's the 3rd most targets among tight ends. His average depth of target, again, nothing impressive, 6.4 yards down the field. It's actually above Chase Claypool's, which is 5.5. Najee Harris, by the way, we just talked about Nick Chubb. Najee Harris, we talked about Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb is number 8 in the NFL in yards per carry. Najee Harris, I want you to guess right now. Do you think Najee Harris is over under yards per carry? Over under 45 for Najee Harris in where he ranks for yards per carry. Over under 45. If you took the over, he's the 58th running back in the league in yards per carry, 2.9 yards per carry for Najee Harris. That is, I mean, I don't even know how many running backs have registered to carry. Probably not very many more than 58. Probably not much more than 58, I would say. He might be near dead last in yards per carry. And you go back and watch the actual film, and it makes sense. He's getting 1 to 3 yards on like 90% of his plays. He doesn't have any big plays. He does not get big plays. Like he carves out 3-yard plays, but he almost never has big plays. And we've seen this all the way back to his rookie season. He had basically no plays in the NFL to date over 20 yards. Like he's incapable of making big plays. And his best hope for doing that is in the passing game. He does average more yards per touch in the passing game. And he will get a lot of targets probably tonight, especially if the weather is bad. And he has got a lot of targets. That's why you have to start Najee Harris. But they're on different playing fields. I mean, they're not even close. It's the offensive lines, but it's also it's each running back's ability to break big plays. And we obviously Chubb can do that. Just traded ETN for Olave. Thoughts? I love this, Colton. I would do this in a second. And I'm not as low on ETN as most people. Like I still think he'll have some good receiving days. Like he'll be usable. But I think Nyheim Hines ETN is closer to like Tony Pollard than he is like Alvin Kamara, which if you were drafting ETN, you're hoping for Alvin Kamara. And that's what we probably would have gotten if James Robinson wasn't healthy to start the season, but he was healthy. He is healthy. So yeah, I like this. Olave, again, he leads the league in air yards. He was on my buy list in the YouTube video I dropped this morning. Check that out on the WalterPicks channel. We have about 10 minutes left in the stream, so do want to get to as many questions as possible. I usually end the live streams on YouTube. Come over to the YouTube live. Link is in the TikTok bio. It's easier for me to answer your comments. I can pull them up right on the screen. So it's actually a little bit easier. There's also more info on the screen on the YouTube live, especially in the Sunday morning ones. I got my top 10 rankings, every single position. I will pull up my favorite prop again tonight. I'm a little nervous about this one. If you're nervous about the wind like I am, which is 30-mile-an-hour gusts, I'm just sticking with the low props tonight. I'm nervous about the offenses in this game. Again, I think the Browns win. I think the Steelers cover. But I wouldn't be shocked if the Browns just blow the lids off the Steelers. The Browns are much better. At almost every single position, the Browns are better than the Steelers. Quarterbacks, they both are bad. The offensive line, Browns win that battle. The defensive lines, the Browns win that battle. No TJ Watt, Myles Garrett is playing. The secondaries, neither has looked great. I mean, Joe Flacco just threw for over 300 yards against this Browns defense. That's pretty embarrassing. But again, I'm not like feeling great about Mitch Trubisky at the same time. Meanwhile, the Steelers secondary didn't look great against the Patriots, and the Patriots don't have any elite receivers. I mean, Nelson Aguilar was mossing them. That was the difference against the Pats. Nelson Aguilar mossing you. And I don't know if Nelson Aguilar will have a play like that again this entire season. That was one of the best plays of his entire career. So yeah, I don't like either secondary that much. But both secondaries might be okay with 30-mile-an-hour winds. Again, 30-mile-an-hour winds, gusts up to 30 miles an hour tonight. That is definitely concerning. And if you don't like the Pickens prop for that reason, and I am getting a little spooked about it as these weather reports come out, I like the Jacoby Brissett prop on Prize Picks over 11.5 receiving yards. Pierce or Wilson in the flex. This is not a Thursday night question. We got to prioritize the Thursday night questions here. But I actually like Pierce, I think, a little bit more than Wilson, even though Wilson did do better, I think, last week. Hey, Sam, should I start Kareem Hunt or Pittman over Pittman? No, come on. Joseph, we went through this last week. You're not allowed to ask Amon-Ra questions. We said we made a rule last week, Joseph. No Amon-Ra questions. There's no start to this decision. Start Amon-Ra St. Brown. He's gone over 8 catches, 8 straight games. Like, what else do you want from the guy? And yeah, you're starting Pittman over Hunt too, for sure, especially if it's a PPR league. It's CB Fishing. Thoughts on Judy with injury? Yeah, Colton. I'm not playing him this week. Hopefully he's back the week after. That's my mindset right now. I'm scared about it. Obviously, I was in team Judy over Sutton all offseason. Sutton's look great. Judy's look good, but he also got hurt, and that's pretty concerning. I'm happy that they're saying it's day to day. I do think he's probably going to miss this week, and if he doesn't miss this week, he's going to be tough to trust. And honestly, I'd rather them just hold him out a week and have him back 100%. I don't like my fantasy players getting rushed back. Hey, Sam, Kyle Pitts or Pat Fryermuth. Man, I knew this one was coming tonight. And honestly, I won't be shocked. I actually think Walter probably has Muth over Pitts. Walter has Pitts as the number 10 tight end this week because he's been so bad. It's based on the recent weeks. Pitts has been horrible. But the underlying metrics aren't so bad for Pitts. He is still up there in air yards at the tight end position. He's 5th in air yards. But guys, guess who's number 3? I think in air yards. I think it's Muth. Let me pull it up. No, Muth is 7th. So Kyle Pitts has seen more air yards than Muth. Muth has been better in basically every other metric though. Fantasy points per game, not even close. Total targets, not even close. I'm playing Pitts over Muth personally. Muth is number 6. Muth is number 6 in fantasy points per game. Kyle Pitts is number 35 in fantasy points per game. I just posted a video about this on TikTok. Go check it out. But it's absolutely crazy how bad Pitts has been. I'm not benching Pitts though. I don't have a team with Pitts and Muth, but yeah, I'm not benching Pitts personally. Bucks D or Browns D? I'd go Browns defense. I like the Browns defense a lot this week. The Bucks defense is interesting, but the offense might not be able to stay on the field. That could be bad for the Bucks D. And I feel like I'm more confident about Rodgers than the average person right now. So I would probably go Browns D. I don't feel good about this Steelers offense and 30-mile-an-hour gusts tonight. 30-mile-an-hour wind gusts tonight. We got about 4 minutes left on the live. Again, what are your projections for Najee tonight? I'll read you through the projections for Najee tonight. But again, he's averaging 2.9 yards per carry. Najee Harris is averaging half the amount of yards per carry that Nick Chubb is getting. 5.5 yards for Nick Chubb, 2.9 yards. Not quite half, almost half. I mean, crazy. He can't break big plays. It's a real problem for Najee Harris. Definitely one I'll be watching again tonight. Can Najee Harris make some big plays? We have him projected 14 carries, 54 yards tonight. 3 targets, another 20 yards in the receiving game. So a total of 66 yards. He's got like a 50-50 shot at a TD. Obviously, he's going to have a good shot at TD each week because he's going to be the goal line back if they can get to the goal line. We have him projected for only 12.5 points, which is probably below where most sites have. Thursday night for football question, Kareem Hunt or Michael Carter, half PPR. Yeah, I'm going Hunt. I'm going Hunt over Carter. And Carter's been good. I still think Breece Hall is good, though, and you never know when that switch is going to flip. Again, I do think the Bengals could blow the lids off the Jets, though, so that could help Michael Carter, who saw a lot of targets in the first couple of games. His receiving role is more entrenched than Breece Hall. Breece Hall had 1 target, I'm pretty sure. This past week, he turned it into a TD, which was good for Breece Hall. But, yeah, I like Michael Carter more than Breece Hall, but I like Kareem Hunt more than Michael Carter. Pollard or Javonte? Yeah, we're not benching Javonte. I know Pollard had a good week, but we're not benching Javonte Williams. Deontay Johnson or Amari Cooper? I like this one. This is a true Thursday night question. Full PPR, I'm going Deontay Johnson. Definitely over Amari Cooper. I would, again, argue that Cooper's ceiling's probably higher. Cooper had 10 targets last week, 9 catches, 101 yards, and I think he had a TD too. But Deontay Johnson's floor, I'd love Deontay Johnson in fantasy because his floor is so good. I was fading him for the most part this offseason because I was nervous. I was like, what if his play style meshed better with Big Ben? But that's an L take for me. Deontay Johnson has had at least 9.5 PPR fantasy points for over 2 straight years in games that he's played at least 50% of snaps. He's playing over 50% of snaps tonight as long as he stays healthy. So, yeah, I'd probably go Deontay Johnson. I think he's just such a safe bet, even with wind over 30 miles an hour. Hey, Sam, should I trade Najee Harris for Javonte Williams and Breece Hall? Yeah, I'd do that literally in 1 second, Amar. I traded Najee Harris straight up for A.J. Dillon. That was a super aggressive move. That might not age very well. But yeah, I would definitely do this one. And I'm low on Najee just overall because he's failed to make big plays in the NFL through like 18 games. A pretty decent sample size of Najee Harris being incapable of breaking big plays in the NFL. He led the league in touches last year, though, so like he's going to get the ball a lot. Deontay Johnson or Courtland Sutton? I'd go Sutton over Johnson, especially with the Judy injury. I think Sutton's floor, like he's going to go over 10 points too. I think his ceiling's higher, though. Again, there's wind in this game. So I do think that's a pretty good tiebreaker. If you got a guy like Sutton, I think that is a decent tiebreaker for benching Deontay Johnson, for benching Amari Cooper. Godwin or Bateman, not a Thursday night question, man. And with Godwin's like first game back, I probably wouldn't go for it. Hunt or DK, another tough one. Who did the Steelers get this week again? They're playing the Falcons. I might go DK, honestly, in that one for the ceiling. Hunt's floor, 100%. It's 100% higher than DK and Lockett, though. Sam, I went all in on Trey this year as my QB1. Nate, man. And now I'm starting Cousins with Goff as my QB2. You think I'm screwed? No, honestly, I mean, you did well getting Cousins and Goff. I think Cousins he had a huge week 1. I don't think he did as good in week 2. But Goff, I'm pretty sure, let me pull the numbers here. Cousins, week 1, he was great. 19.1 fantasy points. He was top 12. He was a QB1, back-end QB1 in week 1. Meanwhile, Jared Goff has been in some absolute shootouts because the Lions' defense is so bad. And Amon-Ra is really good. Let me pull up the Jared Goff numbers. Jared Goff, guys, he's the number 9 QB in fantasy football right now. He had 16.5 points against the Eagles in week 1, and then he had 26 points against the Commanders last week. And it's probably going to be another shootout for the Lions against the Vikings. They play each other, Goff and Cousins. I like both guys this week. Obviously, really good matchup for Cousins and Justin Jefferson. But yeah, I'm okay rocking with these two guys. And yeah, big L on Trey Lance. Obviously, it's tough. He snaps his ankle right after he played one game in a bad weather game, and then he snaps his ankle and he's out for the year. We won't see him until next year. And he's played very little over the last 2 years, going back to college because of COVID. So it's disappointing, and it makes me very nervous about Trey Lance's future. Honestly, it's just gonna be so long till he really gets a chance. I feel terrible for him, but yeah, I'm okay rocking with Cousins and Goff. All right, my final thoughts for tonight. Let me pull this up one more time. I think that the Steelers cover, but the Browns win. And I think there's a better chance that the Browns completely blow the lid off the Steelers than the other way around. I'd be really shocked if the Steelers blew out the Browns. I almost think that's basically impossible tonight. I'd be shocked. I think the other ways around is possible, but I think it's probably going to be a close, ugly offense game. Don't be surprised if we see defensive touchdowns in this game. I'm playing the Browns defense in this game. I'm playing them in a couple leagues because they had amazing first 4 matchups in fantasy. They haven't done great in the first 2 weeks in fantasy, but this could be a good one. Wind over 30 miles an hour, and Myles Garrett is playing this week. Pats were able to sack Trubisky, get some pressure last week too. We know Najee Harris can't break big plays. I do like the Browns defense a lot tonight. Hey, Sam, 2-year sub to the app. Trade Eckler and Dotson for Swift and Garrett Wilson. Yep, I would do this one 100%. Garrett Wilson is maybe 2 or 3 tiers ahead of Dotson in my mind. I like Dotson. He's looked good. He's not going to be what Garrett Wilson's going to be, I don't think. And then Eckler and Swift, I think they're pretty comparable. Eckler's had a slightly down start to the season. Swift only had 7 touches last week because of his ankle injury, but that's going to be his floor for touches the whole season as long as he stays healthy. Swift looked great. The offensive line for the Lions has looked fantastic. Obviously, Eckler is going to be really good too. I'm not panicking about Austin Eckler, but with the Garrett Wilson addition, Mike, I actually really like this trade. I wonder what Walter says about this one. If you're a 2-year sub to the app, by the way, shout out for doing that. It's the number one way you could possibly support me. It's just checking out the WalterPicks app, which is completely free. Starts for as little as $10 a month. And I really do appreciate all the support. But yeah, I would probably take this trade. My boy, you helped me both weeks. Start Pat or Kittle. I got you, Dylan. And we're not going to victory lap until we win fantasy championships. By the way, you got to stay humble. You got to go week by week. Every week is a huge week. You got to make sure you're getting into the playoffs. Once you're in the second you make the playoffs, you have to optimize for the playoffs. And we'll get to that later in the season. But start Pat or Kittle. I'm okay going Kittle. Honestly, I think Kittle's playing this week. I feel confident Kittle's playing this week. I haven't said that in a single live stream yet this season, so it feels good to say that. I do think Kittle's going to play. I'm pretty sure he practiced fully today, or he was at least a limited participant. I'm okay going Kittle. I think Kittle's ceiling is much higher. Muth has been good. Muth has been pretty good. He has the 3rd most targets among tight ends. 30-mile-an-hour winds tonight. I think the ceiling for Kittle is definitely higher. I would be pretty surprised if Muth went over 20 points. I do think Kittle has that ceiling. Love your streams. Thank you. Thanks, Ben. I really appreciate that. Make sure you hit that subscribe button if you're watching live on YouTube. Hit that like button if you're watching live on YouTube. And if you're watching live on TikTok, thanks so much for tuning in. Also, make sure you hit that follow button. I'm posting daily TikTok content. I'm posting weekly YouTube content. I'm live on YouTube every single Sunday morning from when I wake up to kick off. I'm live every single Thursday night for pretty much the 45 minutes leading up to football. Guys, have such a good Thursday night. Time is the most valuable thing we have. Thank you so much for spending some time with me tonight. I'll be back live, as you guys know, Sunday morning. I'll be grinding all weekend, preparing for that live stream. I'll see you then. Have a good one, guys.